This is the Daily Wrestling News for January 31, 2021. It is a special Royal Rumble post-show episode. My name is Ryan Joy, and I'm coming to you live from Minutes to Bell Time Studios on the beautiful Treasure Coast of the Sunshine State. I am joined today by Travis Severance, the salesman of fun. Travis, Rumble's over. Rumble's in the books. We are officially on the road.
We hopped on the road to WrestleMania. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on when you're going to get a chance to listen to this. I know we're coming a little off time today, so we appreciate you tuning in either way.
Yeah, and no worries. Stay tuned. We will have another episode tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock at our normal time. We have a special guest coming on the show, so we'll talk about that at the end. But I guess what we want to get down to is just we got to the Royal Rumble. It's one of the most fun WWE shows of the entire year. And I guess first things first, Travis, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle.
I would say thumbs up overall. I would say there were definitely more positives than negatives. For a big four, I always get nervous going in. I really want them to come off strong. And I felt this Rumble was more enjoyable to me, I guess, than last year's Rumble for sure.
So this is big praise coming from you. You typically, I mean, if folks listen to this show, Travis is pretty critical of WWE. So the fact that I only gave you three choices, up, down, or in the middle, and you chose up, that's praise, I think, for the show.
Yeah. Well, I don't think from the Facebook comments in the group, I don't think I loved it as much as some of the other people. But for me on a WWE production that wasn't an NXT thing, yeah, pretty good.
So we had, we're going to go through match by match and talk about things, and we'll kind of spitball what we think about in terms of, what does this implication mean for the biggest show of the year? But the show kicks off. First of all, it was a 5-match show, or a 6-match show. And the women's tag team title match was on the kickoff show. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler getting the W over Asuka and Charlotte Flair in 10.5 minutes. The only title change of the night. But I kind of saw that coming because I really think that Asuka and Charlotte are on a collision course for each other anyway. So
yeah, and usually I think there are times when I'm critical when WWE doesn't do a good job setting up a story and stuff like that. And it became pretty obvious for the last couple of weeks that both Charlotte and Asuka were definitely headed in different directions with their different feuds and stuff. And what I enjoyed about the pre-match was the interview. They even set that up. The gal interviewed both of them and said, "Hey, it seems like both of you guys are really got your minds on other things, between Lacey and you and between you and Alexa." And it set it up. Sometimes that premonition, not everybody enjoys that going into a match because if it goes chalk, it reads like, oh, you told us what the finish was. But I mean, wrestling is all about not necessarily knowing what the finish is going to be. So yeah, I didn't have a problem with and I don't always love a gimmick finish, but I felt like this gimmick finish was done as well as it could have been done. Rick and Lacey came down to interrupt the match. Lacey went for the initial distraction. That wasn't enough to give the other team the pin. Rick gives her the loaded glove, and then she finishes that way. I thought that's about as good as a gimmick finish as you can possibly do for that match. So after seeing that match, I was like, man, that could have been a good main card match, actually.
Yes.
I know the girls in it had to work the Rumble and stuff, which is probably why they let them go on earlier. And we didn't really see, well, Sasha obviously didn't come out for the Rumble, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, overall for a pre-match match, pretty good. And I'm not the biggest proponent of Nia Jax's work, and I thought she was fine in the match as well.
Yeah, I think, like you said, all everybody's got kind of their own storylines they're going down. Charlotte Flair and Lacey Evans clearly have to get a match in at some point.
Yes.
There's a lot of time between now and WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I really see this year a Charlotte Asuka rematch from 34, but you got to get through Lacey Evans first because that's clearly the next big program for her.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're going to blow that thing off at Lacey. In my notes, I've got not necessarily where it is. Like, I think it's obvious where we're going to see Charlotte go from here, that Lacey situation. As far as the Asuka situation, who knows? Are we going to go back to dealing with Alexa or not? But I don't know where you go with this tag team champs now. We spent kind of the last month sort of breaking up a little bit, and then we spent a little bit of time in the Rumble breaking up a little bit, and now they've got the belts. Like, are we going to go back to another storyline with Mandy and Dana again? Because it's not like the women's division has a whole ton of tag teams lined up for them.
Sure.
So I just don't know what they do with that. I hope it doesn't turn into a situation like we've seen with the men's tag team where occasionally we see them come on here and there.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy Shayna's work, and not seeing her out there working, I think, is a detriment to that show for sure.
Yep. And as you see, I put up a comment from one of our listeners, Michael Campbell. Not entirely thrilled with the way the match ended, but that's the storyline they're going with at the moment. But I think getting the belts off of those two was the right move. We move forward. I think everybody's got big programs and big things coming up. So.
Yep.
Okay. We get to main show time. The show opens with the WWE Championship match. I wasn't terribly surprised by this, although they didn't have very many matches. So you start with like a big important one, and a 2.5 minute one. It wouldn't be much of a break at any other point in the show. So you start with this one. I can actually probably go move for move here with my notes. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
Goldberg and McIntyre got in a hot start. McIntyre gave Goldberg a headbutt and a spear. Things spilled to the outside. Goldberg speared McIntyre through the barricade. Back in the ring, the bell rang. Goldberg ran directly at McIntyre. Drew hit a Claymore. Goldberg ducked a second Claymore, hit 2 spears. McIntyre kicked out. Goldberg hit a jackhammer. McIntyre kicked out. Drew hit a Claymore. Pinfall victory.
So the face that Goldberg made when he kicked out of the jackhammer was both amazement and then what do I do next? Because I only really have those 2 moves.
Right.
So I did the spear to him, and then I did the jackhammer to him. I don't know what to do in this wrestling ring now. Where do I go from here? How do I take this home? So, I mean, your commentary was about as long as the match was. It felt like they showed every minute of every second that Bill spent on TV the last 2 weeks building to this match beforehand. The match was what I thought it was. I guess I was just happy overall that Drew was the one that ended up coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, and I honestly, when you get Goldberg in there, as Vincent is kind of indicating here,
100%.
You don't want a marathon match with Goldberg. You want less than 5 minutes. You want it all action, big move, big move, big move.
Yep.
That's what WrestleMania match was, and you know what? If you turned away, you missed a lot. And
you're not going to see him go Zack Sabre on us or anything like that,
No.
and you're not going to see him high fly, and he's going to come in and do Goldberg stuff. The only thing I guess I would be critical about Goldberg, not that it's necessarily his fault, but it does seem like this felt like a last minute thing they decided to put together, and I think when we get to the Rumble winner, I think there's a reason for that. He didn't look as in shape as he typically does when he comes out. Yeah, he's a year older than he was last year and stuff like that, but it seemed like they'd kind of just threw this program together to make something happen for this big event. And the match was what the match was. I was glad they shook hands at the end, but I don't think that's the end of Bill Goldberg and WWE ring.
Yeah, I was wondering that. I posed that in the conversation thread. I thought it might be just the way they were doing that, like respectful handshake or whatever at the end. John DeConnie chiming in, he was worried about that when that jackhammer went up, that Goldberg might get the W. And I had a lot of scenarios planned out in my head. If Goldberg won, I was rationalizing how we could get something good out of that because you could put Drew in the program with Roman or whatever like that. But
I was right there with John in that moment. I'm like, this could be it, So,
yeah.
And you know what? The other thing too is it is nice to see. What was interesting is you see Drew nose up Goldberg in the ring. Drew is an intimidating fella.
Sure.
That gives you a real perspective for vintage viewers and stuff like that on how much of a monster Bill Goldberg was. And now you've got Drew, the current champion in the ring, looking big and strong and beating him cleanly after getting pummeled at the beginning of the match. So, I think for a couple of losses that Drew's taken in the last 12 months, this win is pretty solid. It's something that we couldn't necessarily see Brock do and some of the other people that Goldberg kind of came in and ran through on their first go around. So it does make Drew look a lot stronger, and I think that's good overall for the brand.
Yeah. Yep. Afterwards, they hugged. Goldberg said he passed the test. Goldberg walked away while Drew, posed with the belt for a little bit. And then the next match on the card is Sasha Banks and Carmella for the SmackDown Championship. At the 5-minute mark, Carmella started trying to tie Sasha's hair to the ropes. Wasn't terribly successful in that endeavor, but it would have been a fun visual if she.
So I had that in my notes too. What a great heel thing to do! I can't think of a time when I remember a heel tying a face's hair into the ropes. Really good, cool spot in that. One of the brighter spots I think of the match overall for sure.
Yeah, Mella went for that suicide dive, and I was pretty scared.
You know what I had? I had visions of Cody Rhodes at Full Gear smashing his head into the ramp because, boy, I thought she was going to reverse Scorpion herself there. And who knows? She may have. The Reggie getting tossed during the match was kind of confusing to me. It didn't seem like I've certainly seen people, and we see it later in the show, do a lot worse things on the outside of the ring as far as getting involved in the match to get tossed. It seemed like a weird reason or a weird spot to have him. I don't know if they're trying to make, they're trying to make it so that he really matters and stuff. But yeah, I would agree, Vincent. The dive was a little bit on the sketchy side for sure. And you can tell it's not something that Carmella does. It feels like to me they're putting her in a spot where she's athletic and she's reasonable on the mic and stuff like that. But I'm not sure if she's ready to do some of the spots they have her doing in with the more seasoned girls. Obviously, she's got a great look. Fun character and stuff, but it might be a little early. Sasha having the Louis Vuitton gear, I appreciated that. She came out with some real quality gear on tonight. That was nice to see. Initially, I saw the brown. I'm like, what's she doing? And then, of course, okay, it's Louis Vuitton. I'll give it a pass. So.
Well, Sasha's husband makes her gear, so I think that.
Yeah, he did a good job. Yeah, very, very classy.
Banks went for a frog splash. Mella put her knees up. Sasha went for another top rope move. Mella hit 2 super kicks for a near fall. Ultimately, Banks locked in the bank statement for the submission victory. Sasha walks away with the SmackDown Championship. So there you have it. We had some backstage fun with the New Day and Sami Zayn. Kofi Kingston made an appearance, his only appearance on the show. I thought he might accompany Woods and Big E down to the ring, but just by the way they were talking.
Yeah,
that didn't happen. The funny line from Woods was, I don't know, when he told Sami Zayn to step aside. Joking aside, he says, "No, really, aside."
Aside, yeah, move yourself. I mean, I appreciate callback. They had the Brody tights on too.
Yes.
It is sad to not see Kofi in the Rumble because he's got so many. I mean, even their highlight reels building into the Rumble, the little segue that they do had so many spots with Kofi saving himself in different ways. So not having him as part of the Rumble is a sad thing. I was appreciative that none of the other people in the Rumble tonight tried to pick up that mantle. They kind of left it to his thing, and they respected that he's the guy that finds interesting ways to work himself back into the match. So that was good.
Yep. Bad Bunny performed Booker T. Booker T stood there until the end and let the line. But it wasn't something for me, but I don't think it was aimed at me, so that's fine.
No, I think between this and the victory, Mexican beer, Rey Mysterio call out in the middle of the Rumble, they're obviously trying to go for some of that Latin audience. I think they're losing some of that viewership between the AAA stuff that's come out, and a lot of the AEW stuff has been working with that Latin Hispanic audience. It felt like a mess. I think it would have been better if Bad Bunny was somebody that had a more popish song that people were familiar with, that you could kind of platform that into. It certainly wasn't, Rage Against the Machine doing DX's song or Motorhead doing Triple H's song. This is Bad Bunny doing a song that's pretty unrecognizable without anything like, it's not what they're doing with the Super Bowl, the weekend where everybody knows his song. So I thought I could see what they're doing from a marketing standpoint, but it felt like it was flat even with his involvement in the show later.
Yeah. But like I said, it was there, and I'm sure that it did appeal greatly to somebody that they were trying to hit.
Sure.
It just wasn't me. But
yeah.
Tempe chiming in with the no Kofi crazy Rumble spot, no Casey crazy Rumble spot, which was a bummer. I did miss seeing Casey. We were about to talk about the women's Rumble. Casey is fun. We did have Naomi the entire match, but she also, I guess, I don't know if it's because she's just coming back from surgery or whatever, but she didn't do any of her funky stuff either, really.
We didn't see her on the outside of the ring like usual, last year. And, not having the crowd there certainly takes away from those spots, but I'll agree with Tempe 100%. Not seeing Casey, given some of the decisions that they made on the women from NXT to bring in, was curious to me, especially after all the likes and the views that she got from that finisher. I still don't even it reminds me of the first time I saw, Petey Williams do the Canadian Destroyer, just out of control.
Oh, the corkscrew spin.
I don't even know what that thing
star,
is.
Phoenix
backsplash thing.
Press thing.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
When you're a Ninja Warrior, I guess you can do those things.
Yeah. Okay, so we had the 30-woman Royal Rumble. Went 58 minutes, 45 seconds. Jerry Lawler on commentary.
Yeah, which was interesting because there was some conversation that his contract had expired and that went through the dirt sheets and stuff like that. So apparently he either signed another one or at least came in for this show.
Absolutely, yeah. We had some alumni and we had a whole bunch of NXT people in the Rumble. I have it down as Shotzi Blackheart, Rhea Ripley, even though it's pretty well confirmed that she's moving to the main roster. Santana Garrett, Toni Storm, Dakota Kai, and Ember Moon. On the alumni side, I got Alicia Fox, Jillian Hall, Victoria, Tori Wilson. Mickie James is kind of an in-between area because she's kind of an active still, but
yeah, and I don't know where Nikki Cross sits these days either. I was kind of surprised to see her as well, but she was definitely there.
Well, if you blinked, you didn't.
No, she wasn't there for very long. Right.
I really thought we'd see some interaction between her and Alexa Bliss. But Bliss was in there shortest of all, really. She came in way late. She was part of my pick for the Final Four. She didn't make it. I guess we should bury the lead, though. Bianca Belair won this thing.
Bianca Belair won, yeah. I have liked her work since she's moved over. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and it is weird when you transition somebody from a super heel on the NXT brand to bring them over to the main roster and you see him as a face. But the reality of it is, main roster, there's no shortage of heels. Right. Like everybody on the bigger side of things outside of Asuka, who has just turned face. Remember, folks, we had her spitting mist in people's faces a couple of months ago. Yeah. So like trying to find a face to put on that brand, and Sasha just turning after being buried by Bayley as well. So like they're trying to create some reason for conflict to happen, and you got to do it with somebody. And I thought, I mean, they might have overset her up. Right. Like I called it a couple of weeks ago that I thought that she was going to win. They did a lot of things, and they certainly showed her in a lot of the vignettes leading up to it and stuff like that. So it felt like it was super chalky for her to win. But I'm not uninterested in seeing her and what she can do. She's athletic and a good wrestler. So
really good outing from Rhea Ripley.
Yep. 7 eliminations tonight.
Yeah.
Which led all women in the match, which is insane for
I have
for the talent.
Baszler down for 6.
Baszler at 6, and I got Bianca and Nia in third place with 4 apiece. Yep. So that was the top 3 for the night as far as eliminations go. Surprises out of me, I'm right there with you. I was surprised that Alexa got tossed out, but then I wasn't surprised that it was Ripley, because maybe they're just moving into that program.
Yeah.
Rhea's going to come out. Now,
I also like the idea of Rhea Charlotte another go.
Sure. Rhea Charlotte another go would be great. I think my only challenge with Rhea Alexa is, we've got this David versus Goliath thing, but we've got the Sheen at least on the other side, so that can be I can suspend my disbelief that this woman that's 2 foot taller than the other woman and just jacked and a powerhouse badass can get it beat up by some supernatural stuff. So we'll see.
So the final four on the women's side was Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, Natalya, who had drew 30. She pretty much had to just get past one person, I think, by the time she got out.
Yeah, there was only 5 or 6 people in the ring by the time she got in.
And Bianca. Now, Lana also late in the game surprise. She she came out. I think we've had that called. John DeConnie on the Essential Wrestling Podcast called her as coming in 5th place, and you know what? She came in 5th place. So
yeah, John's a legend. And she wasn't even a name until I was listening to you guys on your banter the other day talk about it. It wasn't a name that I thought about because we hadn't seen her in weeks. Mm-hmm. I think the other surprise for me, really, and I know she was a bracket buster for you guys, but Bayley.
Yeah,
she was effective. She was in the ring early on. She certainly carried the first third of the match, but then kind of unceremoniously eliminated by
Bianca Belair.
Okay. So at least there's a storyline behind that, but man, she just got eliminated, and then we moved on with our lives.
12th elimination, so she didn't make it halfway.
Yeah, she wasn't even halfway home as far as eliminations go. So that was certainly a surprise to me. The fact that it's Bianca is okay because it's going to set up a continued story with the 2 of them. So that's fine.
Yeah, but I do hope there are a lot of times they make these people defend their right to challenge and stuff like that as you get through. Give me the time. Let's spend the time on building up Bianca for this match. You know, if she's got to defend it, let's not have her lose it. Let's just have a strong victory.
Yeah. Well, so my concern too, and they went through two different iterations of it. They said in the last 4 Rumble winners have all won the title. So like that's kind of feels like a harbinger to the results for this year. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully that doesn't say, okay, well, we need to reset this and have both of the Rumble challengers lose. But it was interesting that they decided to call back to that. The last 4 Rumble winners had won titles in a row. So we'll see, I guess.
It's funny. Vincent brings up this, and I think what he's talking about is Bayley's elimination, because Bayley, it wasn't even on camera. They had to do. They had to find a clip.
Yeah, that's right. Somebody else was coming down to the ring in the middle of that thing, or they were beating on. Like I think that was when Shayna and Nia had gotten eliminated and were beating on people on the outside or whatever. Yeah, it was. It did. They had to go back and rerun the clip. And here's the elimination. Yeah, it was.
Now,
it was
when Julian Hall walked out, were you like, did your heart sink a little bit?
Oh, so it didn't. Even in my notes, I put down. I thought the Billy Jilly was cute.
That was good. Yeah, Billy Kay, great comedy.
I thought that was as good as you can do with the two of them. And then the other part that I liked is when they were in the ring and they were fighting together, and Ruby came in. Billy points to and says, "She's cool.
Yeah,
don't eliminate her. She's cool." And like Ruby wants nothing to do with them. Like they start beating on one corner, and Ruby moves over to the other corner. Like, I don't want the stinky kid on the playground with me, sort of thing. It was very good, very good.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's definitely aimed at being comedy, and it is comedy, but it's kind of nicely played and it's not overdone. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean, and it works for Billy for sure. Like she's kind of this over the top, easy to like. I think her accent helps it out a lot too. So
yeah, there you
overall, I thought it was a fine Rumble. We certainly didn't see any of the big superstar surprises that I think some of us thought we were going to see. No Becky Lynch, we saw no Ronda Rousey, so maybe they're holding some cards back for that.
Well, that Fastlane pay-per-view has got to be a big one. Because that's the first one on Peacock, so it could be that they announce some big things for that.
I think so. I think you got to see they got to go into that with a really hot start and a good card for something that the February pay-per-view or whatever, or the March pay-per-view is usually kind of forgettable. So
well, just to make sure force people to figure out the technology. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Technology switch, and if it's a lame show, they'll be like, I'll figure it out for Mania. But
yeah, and you don't want lack of viewership there for sure. Yeah, no, they want to hit the gates running, I think, which is good for us as wrestling fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no Taya, no Tessa. You're right, Tempe. I don't know. I was surprised no Taya. Less surprised no Tessa, because I think there's still a shot that she ends up at AEW, but we'll see. AEW has a different kind of moral code, so maybe not. But no Taya was strange to me. I would have liked to see Taya. I think if they had brought out Taya, it would have made Ripley's performance tonight less substantial, because they would have had to play her up a little bit more. And I think the focus here was create a star out of Bianca. Let's get Rhea really big so that we can transition her to the main roster and give her a reason. So the Rumble kind of this year felt like it was sort of setting up the two of them for a run for the next 12 months and being accepted by the broader fan base.
The other thing is Shayna Baszler in that tag team with Nia Jax. She always plays second fiddle, always. Mm-hmm. But in these Royal Rumbles, this one included, Shayna Baszler, I think, was the bigger star in the Rumble.
Yeah, Shayna's a machine. She's a machine. She can go with anybody. She can wrestle up. She can wrestle down. That was another thing too that I had in my notes. The chain wrestling start with Bayley, or somebody started some chain wrestling in the beginning of that match, and I was pretty impressed with it. Or maybe that was the women's tag match that they started out chain wrestling. Yeah, I think that's what it was. But yeah, it was pretty good. It was good movement, and Shayna definitely is really good at that. So it's nice to see somebody kind of hang in that realm. Toni Storm, I thought, could have been more prolific. She didn't have an elimination at all. She went out fourth, like she was in seventh. Like, yeah, that wasn't much of a showing from our UK star, Tony Time.
But thrown out by Rhea Ripley, so it's like,
that's fine.
You
get the juggernaut toss.
Payback for all the sins of my past. We're a new person. I'm on the main roster now. You NXT people, get out of my way.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
After the match, Bianca Belair gets her in-ring promo with Bianca, with Kayla Braxton, through tears and thanking her mom, dad, and Montez Ford. So good baby face promo. Not everybody's in the wrestling community is happy with Bianca's mic skills, but I think that was a good baby face promo at the end, and emotional and stuff. So
I think it's as good as you're going to see on a young gal like that with her first real big stage situation on a Big Four pay-per-view going into a Mania match. I think
after
the part
wrestling
that
55 minutes,
after wrestling 55 minutes in the ring with a bunch of people, there's probably a bit of imposter syndrome that kicked in. Like the tears were definitely real. I think the only part that annoyed me about that segment was instead of keeping the camera on her the entire time, they decided to cut and go to the Snickers sponsoring WrestleMania thing. Like, come on, it's like you can do that 30 seconds afterwards or whatever, or cut down on that. But aside from that, I thought overall well earned and stuff. And we'll see. You know what? If she falls flat and she sucks as a wrestler in the next 12 months, then maybe I'm wrong on that. But I don't see it happening. I think maybe the hair will go before her talent goes.
Yeah. One other point. I don't typically cover 24/7 championship title defenses or anything.
Because why would you?
Yeah, but there was a 24/7 championship. Now my wife popped huge when Alicia Fox came out, so she got a little title reign in the middle of the show. So
yeah, I was annoyed at first that the 24/7 was showing up in the middle of the women's match. Like, gosh, just leave the women alone, let them do their thing. But the fact that the title change happened there and then it changed back, I mean, changing again to the commentator on the side and the post match in the middle of the thing was not my favorite probably ever. But we'll see how that goes.
It did pull away when you had all those other people, but you know what? It didn't pull away for long, and we got back to the business of the deal. So all good. The next thing after so Bianca wins from the Ric Flair position, number 3. That's where Flair went from in 92.
Yep.
So I guess the question I should ask before we move on, who's she go after? Does she go straight for Sasha Banks? Does she go for Asuka? How do we think this is going to play out? NXT title?
So this one I'm definitely more up in the air about. I feel pretty good about knowing where I think the men's are going to go, but I'm not positive what's going to happen here. I mean, because you've got Sasha face, you've got Asuka face, and NXT is Io Shirai. Yeah,
for now. But
I don't think we see, like,
it'd be weird to play it back and do that again.
Correct. So my gut says Sasha because they'll want to keep that on SmackDown with this new, up and coming talent and star and stuff like that instead of moving over to Raw and stuff. But maybe they want to mix it up and have her, wrestle against some of the girls on the other side of the roster. We'll see.
John chimed in with, if Bianca has to defend her title guarantee, crazy non-ending triple threat at Mania, Sasha, Bayley, Bianca. I could see that. It'd be interesting. I had thought we were going to go Bayley, Sasha for sure. So maybe Bianca is just kind of a third person in that situation.
Yeah, triple threats aren't my favorite in Mania, but I could certainly see it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and these champions, I mean, like we said, there's a lot of time between now and April, so they may not still be holding those belts.
Right.
Okay, let's move on. Next thing we saw was Miz and Morrison with Bad Bunny. They want to be friends. They want to collaborate, everything. Bad Bunny's not really wanting any part of that. Booker T was there lurking in the back as Miz and Morrison were bad-mouthing him. When Booker T slammed that door, I thought for sure 3 or 4 seconds later he was going to open it back up and say, sucker, but he didn't. So.
He didn't do that. Yeah. So Miz to me as a fan is the worst part of the show anytime he's on there. There was a dislike that I had for Seth Rollins before he went out for his paternity leave for the baby and stuff. And I just felt like they just kept going back to the well on him, and Miz is sitting in that spot for me. I don't think he deserves the camera time. He's not funny. Like, I know what heels are. I love heels. I prefer heels over baby faces all day. And it hasn't been working. It hasn't been funny. I haven't found it entertaining in months now. So I'd really like to see something move on. And maybe it's the the Money in the Bank nonsense or whatever the case may be, or the hey, hey, ho, ho. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but I just can't click with him. And I love heels.
I actually think that it would help if he just moved on from the different storyline.
Sure.
He's been carrying that briefcase around. The idea of him stealing the briefcase from Otis was annoying to begin with, and so now,
or just be a tag team with Morrison, right?
Yeah.
Like, go back to that. Don't pretend that you're going to actually be any threat in the singles realm right now, because you can't hold the rest of those guys tights that are on the top ends of the card right now. It's just that's not reality. And we saw it. Morrison actually is a better performer in ring from the match on Monday than Miz is. So, like, if anything, he's holding back John Morrison, if I had to make a call.
I would agree with that. But let's move on. Peter Rosenberg, he is the current 24/7 champion. He rolled up R-Truth after a low blow. Moving on. Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, last man standing match for the Universal Championship. I thought this was a good match. 24 minutes, 52 seconds. I may be thinking a lot of it because I recently rewatched Edge versus Orton at Mania, which lasted, the official clock time is 36 minutes, but I'm telling you, I thought I was watching it for about 3 days.
Yeah. So Edge versus Orton dragged. I remember that. Yes. They were up on top of all the equipment and stuff like that, yes. And it dragged forever. I certainly didn't pop for this match as much as the people in the comments on Facebook did. And probably the reason why is just 2 days ago, I watched a last man standing match from Royal Rumble 2016 that opened the show. And that was Kevin Owens versus Dean Ambrose inside an arena in a last man standing. And that match was phenomenal. And they didn't have set up trampolines and all kinds of bullshit that they were roaming around and jumping off of that were set up. So, like, anybody that wants to come in and talk about the AEW Stampede match or any of those things where they just have, a whole playground of stuff set up and they're hitting their spots and stuff like that, that goes nuts for this match. This was the same match, and they took a bunch of spots from those matches. I don't care that was the case. I thought it was as good a match as they could have done, minus the last 3 minutes of the match.
Yeah. You're not the only person who thought that. Jeff Johnson, Wrestling Sound Off.
There you go, Jeff. 100%. And that's the risk you run. You get those gimmick cuffs out there. And then you got the commentators running, oh, you know what? He can't get to his feet. He's going to be down. And then it takes Heyman a couple of extra seconds. They shouldn't have brought out that second ref until Heyman had those handcuffs off, because now you have the commentary team going, oh, he's gotten to a base. Well, he was at a base the entire time before.
Yeah. I noticed that the whole referee was counting and then he wasn't counting.
So he got to 6 and then they pull him off screen.
Like, what's Kevin Owens doing? But, the golf cart thing, it was different. Obviously everybody, even in the conversation thread, everybody thought of the Matt Hardy, Sammy Guevara spot, right? Immediately. It was slightly different, but it's really hard not to invoke that. And then when I saw the forklift, I'm like, oh my God, here's halftime heat from 1998. We're going to have the Mankind, or the Rock pin Mankind,
Well, I mean, that was the Hardy spot where Hardy concussed himself against Sammy too. They just went through a table instead, I mean, Kevin landed that swanton much better than Matt did and stuff like that. I thought overall spots were good. I thought the match was great. I'm not going to give it to Dave Meltzer 5.5 stars in the Tokyo Dome. I would say that it was a good 3.5, 4-star match for me. I thought it was as good as what I thought it was going to be, all things considered. Which,
and I know people love Kevin Owens, but I think he's still, even despite all that love, I still think he's underrated.
Oh, without a doubt.
Everything he did, I mean, those were like, those could be very dangerous moves, and they all looked very good, well performed. Wasn't like concerned that he was going to be dead when it was over. Even if that's him getting tossed off the second floor of the monitors, and also him coming off of that forklift of the swanton. Those could have been ugly. And
for as many matches as he's been in the WWE, where he's been in stuntman matches, I have never seen a spot where I thought to myself, Kevin's going to hurt himself or Kevin's going to hurt his opponent. And given the amount of things that he's fallen off of and jumped through and done that stuff on, and given his body composition, that's pretty amazing.
Yes.
Like overall, hats off to him and Roman for a match that I thought Kevin could have had a chance to win.
I did too. That was the thing.
And I'll take that as a win.
I didn't think so going in. But as we got late in that match, I was like, okay, maybe it's going to happen. And then, then they got other plans for Roman, which is fine too.
I think my only surprise coming out of the match was there's no Jey Uso. We didn't see an Uso anywhere in the show.
Jey was advertised for the Rumble, and one of the original people. He was supposed to win it and go, beat Drew McIntyre, and they'd have both belts. And silently, he just wasn't on the show.
Yeah, no him, no Keith Lee. So I'm wondering if COVID didn't creep in and get both of those guys, because Mia Yim had quietly announced after she was badgered a little bit that she had COVID. So I bet you that's what we see for those two, because not having him on the show after they built it up for a couple of months seems very strange. And I would guess that he was probably in Hurricane spot.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, it was interesting. When Hurricane came out, I was like, oh, you know what? Hurricane was in the last AEW pay-per-view too.
I had that in my notes. How many guys actually without contracts for either company have been in both of the companies' pay-per-views in the last 12 months? And
yeah,
Hurricane's probably the only guy.
Yeah, I think maybe. So main event time, 30-man Royal Rumble. Edge and Randy Orton were announced as 1 and 2 on Backstage last night, and here they were, 1 and 2. And man, when Randy Orton left early in the match, I said to myself, "Oh man, he's going to win it. He's going to win it." That's all there is to it. I thought absolutely no chance anything else happens.
I'm getting ready. I'm in the living room doing this as they're taping up his knee and doing the things. Like, I'm already celebrating. I've got the camera out. I'm getting ready to take the pictures and really mark out on Facebook. I was ready to go.
Well, there you go. So it wasn't Randy Orton winning. Again, don't want to bury the lead here. Edge got the win. Here's your Royal Rumble winners, Bianca Belair and Edge. They took things home tonight. Good for them. Edge hasn't won the Royal Rumble in 11 years, as we were told on the show. So,
and Bianca wasn't born 11 years ago, so it makes perfect sense.
There you go. In terms of surprises in this one, considerably less. Now, that's not really that surprising because we had far more people announced ahead of time. But we did have Damian Priest making it what appears to be his main roster debut here. You can kind of tell the difference between a main roster debut and an NXT guy that's participating.
Well, what's interesting is he was the only NXT guy in the entire Rumble.
Right.
They didn't bring in a single NXT performer, which I thought was odd given how many of the women that we ended up seeing.
Yeah.
I think without a doubt this moves him into there. And based on his performance in the ring and how many eliminations he had and stuff like that, yeah, they're putting him in a position to fight against somebody for sure. I enjoyed the opener because it really harkened back to like Royal Rumbles previously, which Royal Rumbles before, it wasn't this gray kind of melange of everybody for themselves. They still played face and heel. So when Edge came out to the ring and the first 3 participants were Randy, Sammy, and Mustafa Ali, the heels beat on the face. Thank you. Right. Let's team up and let's kick on this guy. Let's kick this guy's face in. And the fact that they stayed with a little kayfabe like that, and we didn't see a quick turn until there were enough people that Randy could RKO everybody in that zip code. It was good to see the heels kind of beat on the face for a little bit. That was a cool kind of a throwback for sure.
It was funny. Jeff Hardy was the 5th guy, so that's the big face to make the save. Of course, he was the first guy thrown out, and I bring that up because it's kind of, I don't know if it's funny, but I have heard in the past that people, in Jeff himself, saying, I want that big main event at WrestleMania. Well, getting tossed out first in the Rumble is not good.
Yeah, he's just been buried. Like, the poor guy just doesn't have it. And not for nothing, it's interesting because we see Christian come out tonight, and Christian looks impeccable, and we see Edge, who looks obviously good, who are the same age or older than what Jeff Hardy is, and Jeff Hardy's, doesn't maintain the body like he could, apparently, based on what some of these other guys are doing.
Since you brought up Christian, the only alumni we had in this were Hurricane, Christian, and Carlito. We talked about Hurricane before and Christian.
Now, maybe he's on the active roster, but Kane, the big round machine, is also out too.
Yep. With some eliminations too.
Yeah, 2 more eliminations to add to his world title when it comes to that tonight.
It's funny. They announced him as, he had been in 17 previous. So he was in an 18 spot. It was his 18th Rumble. Al Carl will tell you that
he's been in two more.
He has two more. One is Fake Diesel and one is the demented dentist, Isaac Yankem.
Yeah, Isaac Yankem.
Vincent making a point. Christian was in there for a long time. I agree. Christian, when I saw him come out, I said, okay, well, let's watch and see what he does, because if he does punch, kick, never leaves the ground, never leaves his feet until he gets thrown over, I'm like, okay, well, he's really not ready to compete. He's just like going to do a little spot just to get a pop or whatever. But he was in there for a long time. I still didn't really see him do anything too dangerous, but he did it on Prettier. He got thrown around a little bit.
A couple of Prettiers, and I saw a bunch of the young guys when they came in take an opportunity to get a move in on him, because you don't know how many you're going to get. So the younger guys, when they kind of came into the ring and stuff, Ricochet and whatnot, wanted to mix it up with him and make sure that they got something on him. But yeah, I think he was in the ring for about 20 minutes. I too thought we were going to see an edge spot one way or another with him, and that was kind of going to be the end of it. And then like, it's getting down to it. That ring's pretty empty, and like there he is in his green tights still. I mean, I guess it's just one of those things where, he was a guy who was just a workhorse his entire career, even the time when he was in TNA and stuff like that. They trust him, obviously. The other person, I thought Carlito came in, and Carlito looks like he's about 40 pounds heavier than when he was the last time he left WWE.
But it's not fat, right?
Boy, what a big boy.
Yeah,
much different than he before. He looked younger. He kind of had a baby face to him and some baby fat on him. He's a big fella. And he lasted in the ring for a while. So who knows? Maybe they'll kick it back to him. I don't think we're going to see a Hurricane again. I don't think we're going to see Kane. I don't think I can imagine we may see Christian in some kind of a special Edge and Christian tag team match.
Yeah, sure.
If there's something that happens, like I'm positive Street Profits would love to get a run at them as Edge and Christian, or any number of the other teams.
New Day, Usos,
New Day or the Usos, any of those guys would love to take a swing at Edge and Christian. And obviously Christian, he can still go.
Yeah.
If he's in the Rumble for 20 minutes now, obviously that's not full work rate and tags and that kind of stuff. But I thought he was just fine. He didn't look unbelievable to me.
Now, I know you're not super big on RVD, but
yeah.
John DeConnie was pretty convinced that we were going to get an RVD appearance, and I can, you can see why, because they've got him on to do a documentary coming up pretty soon. He is free agent. Seemed like they would, pull the trigger here, because I don't think they're going to pull the trigger and have him do, a match of any kind.
Yeah, certainly if they were going to bring him in to do something, I think he could have probably taken that number 23 spot from Hurricane. Hurricane didn't do much of anything in the match, so RVD could have came out to a pop. But who knows? I mean, I don't know. I don't know Rob is the most reliable worker ever on the planet either. So,
I liked the Bobby Lashley and Big E spot where they kind of got into it a little bit. I thought that was good. You're at your IC guy and your US guy, in the middle of the ring facing them. They kept Bobby really strong though. I have 4 guys down here that it took to eliminate him. So
yeah, they kept him strong, and maybe it's and I don't have I haven't consistently watched WWE for a long period of time. I've been in and out for years, but man, I look at Big E all the time and I think to myself, man, Big E is a big dude. He's a massive guy. And then man, when Bobby Lashley sized him up, I'm like, Bobby Lashley could eat. He's massive. And then like I had to think back to myself and I'm like, man, Shelton's pretty big too. So it's like there's that Shelton generation, Benjamin generation, where the wrestlers were just a little bit bigger. And when Big E came in, they got a little bit smaller and a little more cruiserweight, a little more acrobatic. And obviously he's with 2 smaller guys too. So of course he looks like a reverse triangle and a massive guy. And man, Bobby Lashley, gosh, what a gross giant dude. Like if they gave him a Heyman or something like that and they put him on, he could run a title shot for sure. There's no mic.
He kind of has a Heyman.
Yeah. MVP is good, but man,
you know what? And they gave him a title shot against Drew. It might have been Drew's first feud. It wasn't the first defense because that was Big Show after Mania. Yeah. But it was like one of his first programs right afterwards. But Lashley had just hooked up with MVP. It's a different Lashley today. Back then it was like Lashley coming off of the Lana storyline.
The Rusev one, which wasn't super popular.
No, well, you know what? It actually was a huge ratings draw.
But yeah, in general, it was kind of a cringy.
But us dedicated marks didn't really love it. So, but the MVP, Lashley's storyline and the Hurt Business and everything that we have now, that's a different Lashley to put in that title match. So
yeah, for sure. And it was curious that he was the only member of Hurt Business that came out tonight.
yeah, again, same thing. Almost can come out with AJ, but nobody comes out with Bobby. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, and two eliminations by Omos. I can't remember a time when somebody outside of the Royal Rumble had eliminated two people. We saw that tonight. So
two people, Big E and Rey Mysterio. Big E, center of the attention, Big E, and Rey Mysterio, who, you know, it would be a real dark horse to win this thing, but, you know, one of the more popular upper tier guys.
Yeah,
so.
But I don't see us moving into a Rey Mysterio Omos program and Big E's on the other channel.
Yeah.
So
would Rey, actually.
It didn't feel like it built into any story for AJ. And AJ was somebody that I came out of the Rumble with still unsure what they're going to do as far as the program goes for him.
And you know what? AJ, there's a couple of sequences he had with Edge, and I'm sitting there thinking, that's the match that I probably want to see before these guys both hang it up.
For sure.
Like it's coming up in the next 6 months, but that's a program I'd like to see.
So yeah, so when if we move from that to predictions, I think we're going to see Edge Drew, and I think we might see Edge AJ in between.
You
and
do?
I think okay. I do, because I think there's a bunch of legends, and I'm hoping maybe CM Punk is one of them. I mean, CM Punk's obviously gone with AJ before, but that look at the reverence and how he treated the Boneyard match with Undertaker, and there's a whole bunch of them that are like, you know what? I can get into the ring. That guy can make my old ass look pretty good. We can put a match together, and it's a guy that I can trust in the ring, that knows his stuff, that knows my stuff, and is like, you know, he might turn into the send off guy.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah,
I watched that whole Mania 36 last week, the whole show, both nights. And I will tell you, I thought that Firefly Funhouse match was garbage when I watched it. Yeah, and I watched that thing back, and it is really good. You're
talking about the Cena storytelling thing.
Yeah, and I know it's kind of unrelated, but you said Boneyard and it brought me there. But
yeah,
if you go into that thing not expecting a match and expecting, you know, storytelling and a thing, it's really good. And then on the other side, the Boneyard was just that match is impeccable. So yeah, I can see where people might be looking at AJ Styles saying, you know, he's a guy I'd like to write one of my final stories with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
The funny thing is he's writing his final story too.
Well, he's not too far behind all of them either. Yeah. You know, he's been wrestling for a long time. So.
Now, so you got Seth Rollins making a return here. Braun Strowman's he kind of returned on Friday night, but he also made his big return. He hasn't been seen since the day after Survivor Series. So those are some big players that are re-entering the fray here for the march to WrestleMania. Dominic Mysterio got his elimination over King Corbin, and then immediately got tossed out by Bobby Lashley in a very definitive way.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it came down to it. You know, The Miz, he came out, he destroyed some of Bad Bunny's equipment that they left behind. Bad Bunny and Snoop Dogg, I guess, is the comparison everybody's going to make from here on out.
Yeah, and I felt like Bad Bunny's splash.
Oh, I think you froze.
Off the top ropes was much. Got me back?
We're back.
Okay.
You froze, and then I got kicked out. So now we're back. Life is good.
Yeah.
Thanks for bearing with us for the 20 seconds. But so I mean, in general, that's the Rumble. I mean, Edge is your winner. Who do you think? You mentioned you think Edge versus Drew.
Yeah, I think Edge versus Drew makes a lot more sense. I think there's more unfinished business within the SmackDown roster over there, and I think the reason why they did this Goldberg Drew thing in the middle of this thing was so that he could clean slate segue into a new program. Mm-hmm. And it feels to me like there's more meat on the bone as far as what's going on over on the SmackDown side than where you go with Drew next. And Edge seems like a natural. I mean, Randy's there too. right?
Yeah.
You got a whole bunch of other stories on Raw that you can feed him through, and a bunch of people running their mouths on the mic than you can in SmackDown, which is kind of devoid of that for him, really.
Well, here's something else that I just kind of thought of. Last year, we had all this build for Roman and Goldberg. We were going to see spear versus spear. Maybe we still will.
Oh, it
Maybe
could be.
it'll be,
You're
you
going to
know,
see spear versus spear on the other side of it. Sure. That could
yeah,
happen.
is sometimes when the Book of McMahon has something written down, we don't want to move away from it.
No.
We'll find a way to
I
do
don't know.
that.
I'm trying to think of who's going to bring the biggest draw into Tampa for a live crowd for the first time in like forever. So, I think I don't know.
I don't think they have a problem selling those seats. I really think that they're going to be probably focused on bringing some people to Peacock. I think. I don't think that selling. If they sell 15,000 seats, I think they're gone within 10 minutes.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I would agree. Just based on the the state of the world and stuff, for sure, without a doubt.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think if I'm Edge, if I had to choose, I think Drew's kind of a hotter commodity too. Like he's been
Yeah.
around the ring when Roman was rolling around, and like Drew was there during that period of time too. It's funny because I went back and I started with the 2010 Rumbles and watched through, and a young Drew McIntyre came out in
Mhm.
one of them ones as the chosen one, and you thought it was going to be a big deal, and it just wasn't a big deal. So
It took him leaving and coming back, but
yeah,
but yeah, I'm glad he did because man, I think he's really good now. So
yep, I would agree.
all right, yeah. So Edge and Bianca Belair again, they are the big winners. Anything else on the Rumble you think, Travis, that we need to hit before we close the book on it?
I think that's it. I didn't it didn't feel like there was a whole ton of stories that developed out of the Rumble and the inside of the Rumble or anything like that, or any big spots, but I'm sure they'll pick and choose some different things to go with. I thought overall the Rumble itself was better than last year's. Then again, you didn't
Oh
have
my God, yeah.
first 13 getting eliminated by one guy who was the champion. So
Oh my God, when we got down to 30, and I'm like, I kind of forgot about Braun Strowman. We're down at 30, and I'm like, oh my God, Lesnar's going to come out. Lesnar's going to come out and
this is
ruin
gonna
my
be,
night.
yeah. Well, so when Rollins came out at 29, I was like, oh, there's only Braun left.
Yeah.
So it was safe at that point. But yeah, when Cesaro was out at 28, I'm like, oh, there's two left. We're gonna see somebody show up, and
Yeah.
just never
Well,
happened.
I want to thank people for tuning in. We had actually really good participation for our first ever post show. I think
Yeah,
this
thanks
would
a
be a
lot,
good
everybody.
concept.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love to have you guys chiming in. Appreciate your posts and it's nice that John runs he's kind of the showman there that runs the talking feeds and stuff, and the people chiming in for the show is really cool. It's good.
Yeah. A couple of things before we get out of here, just so if there's new people listening, I want to tell you about some other things that we do. You can join Joey Jarzanka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday nights for the Primetime Rundown. On this show, we talk about scripted sports. On that show, they talk to you about non-scripted sports. They're going to take you through the world of sports on that show. Kicks off 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer each Friday. And then we also have a second wrestling show, or maybe this is the second show. This was at the Essential Wrestling Podcast was the first. And I'll be hosting that this week for episode 39. It's got John Smith and John DeConnie, who some of you have seen chiming in. We also have Gary Mahaffey. Travis does a run-in once in a while. El Carl's the primary host, but he is got real life things going on, so he's got to deal with that. But we have episode 39 coming up this Tuesday at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And then our show, this one that you're watching now, Daily Wrestling News Show, typically a morning show, and we'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with Nelio Cuomo Costa of Coastal Championship Wrestling. They have a whole bunch of shows coming up, including one in Nashville, Tennessee, where with Brian Cage, who's actually going to be teaching some of their guys the seminar in the afternoon, and then they got a live show in the evening. He'll be facing KC Navarro, as opposed to Casey Catanzaro.
Right.
Different people.
Yep.
So it should be a good show with him tomorrow. Nelio is a ball of fun. It always sounds like he's had 12 cups of coffee. So.
Yeah, he's a great time every time he's on. I listen to him. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Let's see. And it's nice to get a great job, guys, from Tempe Smith. good wind down. I agree. Sometimes it's hard to come down from watching a pay-per-view. So
yeah, it was weird. I didn't know if I was going to make it through. Like, I felt like when the women's rumble was over, I was like, my gosh, there's another match and there's another rumble to go. Like, I had a lot of adrenaline going. So yeah, it's nice to be able to do this. I'll probably be able to hit the pillow and go right to sleep. So
yep. And it was funny, Travis and I was like talking to him earlier. I'm like, we're gonna have a half hour worth of stuff to talk about. Well, we did. We had a full hour here. It turns out, I was at Dynamite when Sting came out. Travis and I talked for 2 hours as a drove home after just with Sting walking out. We had enough to talk about. So clearly with the Rumble, we could get an hour, of good conversation. So thanks, Travis. Anything else before we get out of here?
Nope, that's it. I'm excited to see what happens with Monday night now. So we'll definitely probably see Edge coming out and Randy and the rest of the gang. And I don't know what happened. Maybe the Fiend is really dead. Who knows?
Well, it's been a minute since we've had full support on this show of saying, I can't wait to see what happens on Monday.
Yes.
So, yes, exactly right. All right, everybody. All right. We'll catch you tomorrow. Thanks for watching and take it easy.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.